Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Sam, talk to me about enterprise and business architectures, how it has evolved since the early 70s. Talk to me about Pinnacle Business Group, EACOE, and BACOE. Tell me everything.
Very good. Thank you for asking me to join you in this broadcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Let's go back to the beginning if we can.
Sure.
We suggest that technology is quite immature and maturing. What I mean by that is it's only been around for a relatively short time as far as history goes. And the concepts that we're talking about, enterprise architecture and business architecture, are equivalent to building a 100-story building. If you're talking about building a 100-story building, no one would ever go and say, let's go out and buy some materials, we'll dig a hole in the ground and figure out how to do this. They begin with an extremely detailed architectural blueprint, and then they move forward. In technology, as I always joke, the general life cycle, unfortunately, is construct, maintain, maintain, maintain. Not architect, analyze, design, assemble. Now, where did I get this understanding? My background is actually in engineering. And in engineering, if I go back to my professors, they drilled into our head the concept of plan, analyze, design, construct. Plan, analyze, design, construct. And so when I started working in commercially, my bachelor's degree is actually in biomedical engineering, which is the study of human trauma using analogies. And as I joke, unfortunately, the issue in that field, it's hard to get fatal volunteers. Good pay, short hours. So you need something else. I know it's kind of a horrible understanding, but it works. It works. So we had to do something else. And all of a sudden I went into the computer field because now I'm trying to simulate human bodies, human trauma, using engineering technologies, computerization in its early days of the 70s, where this was very, very crude. And what I learned there almost immediately was, frankly, the lack of discipline. I went to school to learn this. They handed me, some people on this in the audience would know this, a piece of paper with 80 columns on it and a pencil, and they said, start coding. And I was just kind of surprised. And so as I started looking at this, I started looking at my background in engineering and said, maybe some of this discipline should be in the world of technology. And that's how all of this began. It began essentially as a reaction to what I was seeing in the field.
Okay, so I love this, and being partnered with an engineer myself, I have an idea of the drill. I'm not gonna dare say I know the drill, but I have an idea of the drill. So tell me, Sam, what problem, all that being said, what problem do you solve today for businesses?
Basically, what we suggest is that the indication of something else required is the increasing cyber attacks that are out there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, all of us have cell phones. And if you want to know how poor, and I say this deliberately, the technology area is, just take a look at your cell phone and see how many updates you get on your software almost daily.
Yeah.
Now, the phrases that are used in the discipline are masking the situation. So let me begin with the newest hype, artificial intelligence. What is the first word? Artificial. What's another word for artificial? Unfortunately, fake.
Fake.
Now, let's go a little further. We have people that said, well, Sam, the AI is hallucinating. Well, the correct word isn't hallucinating. The correct word is fabricating. Fabricating. That's the term that we should be using. Same thing in technology. We call them bugs.
Yeah.
We call them bugs. No, they're mistakes. They're mistakes. So we're masking things a little bit. So what we're trying to do is to say, let us start figuring out what we need to build first, and then we'll build it. Engineering, manufacturing, architecture, implementation. Engineering, manufacturing, architecture, implementation. So what we're bringing to the audience out there is tools, techniques, processes, methods, frameworks for bringing that engineering discipline to the world of information systems, which results in a number of things. Number one, agility. People talk about agility all the time. The issue, though, is handcrafting computer programs, you'll never be agile. I don't care if it's called agile programming. I don't care what it's called. If it's handcrafting, it can't be agile. It can't be agile. So we need to look at something a little bit different. And so we're bringing those disciplines to the world, essentially, of information systems. Now, enterprise architecture, that phrase, is also something that has been, how should I put this, marketing manipulated over the years. The term began decades ago, and the objective was essentially a blueprint for business first and then into technology. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is people concentrating on the technology, and the people going into the field, as I mentioned, sometimes are pure technologists, which is wonderful. But please remember where they're at. They're at the back end. And it's not that that's not important, but we're forgetting the front end. Mm-hmm. We bring consulting, frameworks, mentoring, methodologies to the world of enterprise architecture. Now, let me just contrast just for a moment the phrase business architecture, which has also, unfortunately, been manipulated a little bit. If you can look at the two terms for just a moment, I always like to say enterprise architects are an inch deep and a mile wide. They're building the baseline for integration across the whole enterprise domain. A business architect is an inch wide and a mile deep. They have deep domain knowledge in a specific area. So they're complementary. Now, third element, what most EAs and BAs do, unfortunately, we look at as technology planning, which is extremely important, but it's not enterprise architecture. We're at the wrong end of things. And there's organizations out there that are and have been promoting this actually to the detriment of the field. But progress is being made. Maturing takes time. Failures takes time. And as the failures increase, more and more people are paying attention to this.
I'm smiling because I'm also reading at the same time the name of your latest podcast episodes, and I find it funny, linked to everything that you're saying. So for the audience listening to us, obviously, because now I have to say it's the latest episode of Sam's podcast is, no, I will not peg my bees on AI, which I like and makes a lot of sense. So that's the what. Who do you solve this problem for, Sam? Who is it that you're helping, and who is it that benefits the most from your expertise on business and enterprise architecture?
Most of our clients are large organizations, and that's because they tend to have multi-million-dollar technology groups And what they're seeing is less and less, frankly, productivity. And so most of our clients are large organizations that have fairly substantial technology groups. But what we find is they're, quote, missing that front end. Now, how do we get in there? How do we get in there? We're very fortunate. We've been in business for decades. And so people know about us. And as you said, we have podcasts, we have broadcasts, we have all sorts of things. I've got 3 books, that I've published. And so we have some recognition, but the success factor is not us, it's them. And when I say them, our objective is to enable the enterprise to do enterprise architecture and business architecture on their own, because we believe it's the enabler of strategy, not the enabler of a system, but the enabler of strategy. So think about it this way. Someone puts together a, quote, strategy document, a binder, beautifully covered, 300 pages, and then what? I know that sounds harsh. And then what? We suggest that architecture is the room by room by room plan to enable that business strategy, because it all has to fit together. You can't just build a bedroom or a bathroom or a kitchen on its own. You have to holistically see what's going on. And you have to begin it with a certain sequence. So we look at, and I want to be careful here, my friend, the approach that we teach, that we consult, the enabling of business strategy, the pathway that we see it. One final point. I'm going to make another analogy. As a stakeholder, as a customer, as a client, as a recipient, here's the analogy. What they're looking for is the chocolate cake. They're not looking for the recipe. They're not looking for the framework. They're not looking for the ingredients. They're not looking for the types of pots and pans or the stove that's used. They're looking for the chocolate cake. So we emphasize that the deliverable isn't just a bunch of models with complex drawings and maps and flows and all these other things that you hear out there, but it's the enabler. It has to be stakeholder understandable. One final point. What I just used, stakeholder enabling. Most enterprise architects and business architects have not been trained in speaking to human beings. I know that when I was in the engineering program, I never was taught a course like that. So what we have to recognize is the strengths and limitations of human beings. And so what we call this is human consumability. The architecture has to be human consumable, and it has some rules there. It's kind of fun. So what we've actually done, before I turn it back to you, is when I say unfortunately, we've introduced another course to our curriculum, which is called Soft Skills for Enterprise and Business Architects. Soft skills. So the hard skills are the diagramming and the analysis and those types of things. But how do you present this to people that are holding the checkbook, as I like to say, the stakeholders? How do you actually present this? You have to know about what they're able to absorb and things like that. So we've added another piece to our consulting practice and education practice to address this area moving forward. That's what we're trying to do.
Buys from you, Sam.
Sorry?
Who buys from you?
Oh, who buys? Most of the time, the clients that we see who brings us into the organization is someone from the technology group.
Yeah.
Somebody from the technology group. And what we see here is 3 phases, which is kind of sort of been there for day one. What's phase 1? Someone from the organization reads about us or sees us or something like that, And as we call it, they send a scout. They send someone to one of our classes. Now, of course, it could be remote or it could be a classroom based. And they sort of check us out. And we understand that. We understand. It makes sense. You're not going to invest in something until you see whether or not there's some legitimate benefit. So we usually see one person from an organization come to one of our sessions. What happens after that, hopefully the message is positive. They take that message back to the organization, and they have a EA or BA team that they now educate and train in our techniques. Then it's up to them. Do they need additional mentoring? Do they need additional support? And that's up to them. And so we have after that in our universe consulting activities. But yes, it generally comes through the technology group, especially on enterprise architecture. On the business architecture side, we are seeing, I'd say in the last 5 years, a movement to business people taking this course because there is no technology requirement. They don't have to know about Ruby on Rails and Pink and all these other things and programming languages. It's about getting an expressive representation of the business. But as we speak right now in this broadcast, most of our contacts are through the technology group.
And that would make sense, right? Because they are the most aware. They are the most aware of what is happening and could go wrong in their space. So they see the need. They see the need for someone like you and your company, Sam, and your companies, when they see that risk and want to mitigate it. So it does make a lot of sense. So you're in an industry where I find business architecture, cybersecurity, safety in general, I find it super interesting because we have a few clients in industrial safety, and the marketing challenge of those companies is that you're selling a vitamin, right? What you want to be selling is painkillers. Like people are in pain, they will pay for the painkillers, but like, oh yeah, in order to not feel pain anytime in your life, you need to get those vitamins daily, and maybe if you were to fall sick, then you wouldn't need the painkillers because you would have a robust immune system. Security, safety, business architecture is kind of the same thing, right? It's like, let us build a foundation so that you don't face any issue that could cost you millions, if not dozens of millions, if not hundreds of millions further down the road. So in your case, Sam, how do you market? How do you brand your different companies right now?
You have excellent questions. These are excellent questions.
Thank you.
I'm using my hands here because what we see here is every time there is a new miracle, our business drops to zero. Almost.
Reassuring.
Every time. It doesn't matter. And I've been at this for over 5 decades. And I can go back to personal computers, client server, types of things, packaged software as a service. I can go on and on and on and on and on and on. And of course, now all you have to do is feed the AI machine, and it'll magically and mystically fix your organization. But let me say something here to the audience that is extremely important. Best practices are not on the internet. No organization in their right mind would take their best practices and put them on the internet for everyone else to use. It's crazy. So what people have to recognize, what they're getting is published practices that are manipulable for a particular purpose. And this includes AI. The myth of AI is it's getting best practices. No, absolutely not. There are 4 categories of information that you and I have access to. First one, general information on the internet. You get on there, you type an inquiry, you have no idea where it came from, whether it's accurate, what the provenance is, what the accuracy is, or anything else like that. The AI engines are being trained on that. Number two, intellectual property theft. Yes, I'm being mean. And this is right now an area of massive concern. And in Europe, they're way ahead of us in the US as far as addressing this. This is where these AI engines are scraping information that is copyrighted and trademarked. That is illegal. It's not sort of illegal. It's illegal. Now, even with that, I want to mention two other things. You mentioned our podcast and broadcasts and things like that. In order to get to our podcast, in order to get to the almost 1,000 articles that we have on our website, we ask you for one piece of information, just one, and that's your email. When we get your email, we send you that article, that broadcast link, whatever. I want to make this clear. We ask you for one piece of information, and you get that. Now, what does that mean to these AI engines? They can't get at this. Let me repeat, they can't get at this. That's number three. And number four that the AI engines can't get into is our workshops, our seminars, our broadcasts that people pay money for, if I can be that blunt. Because that's the way the world exists. Exchange. So the fallacy out there, my friend, is that this AI stuff is doing something marvelous. It's just the opposite. It can't get at the good stuff. So we bring that message to the people that come to us and say, hey, yeah, you can keep using the internet. Have a great time. But you're not going to get information that allows you to be somebody that people care about. You have something of value because the information that you're using is publicly available. Now, what I just mentioned to you, those 4 classes of information, is very uncomfortable to a lot of people because a lot of people are betting their careers on getting rid of human beings, of course, and replacing them by these machines that have information that is possibly nonsensical. Let me give you one example. As I mentioned, we are right now in Michigan. I am a big University of Michigan football fan. I love the games. I love going to the games. And 3 weeks ago, there was a game between the University of Michigan and Northwestern University. This was at Northwestern, so it wasn't in Michigan, so we didn't go to the game. We were watching it on television. So I'm sitting there in my living room with some colleagues, possibly having an adult beverage or two, but we're not going to talk about that.
Okay. It's all right. It's a Peggy 18 show. You can go.
And I grabbed my cell phone and I asked the following question to, typed it in the browser. What is the point spread between the Michigan team and the Northwestern team? So there's all these predictors out there that say, Michigan is going to win by X points or Northwestern is going to win by X points. And these people, mostly in gambling, frankly, are giving us the sort of the electronic opinion, the expert sportscaster opinions of what this is. So I have this on myself. I've kept this on purpose. I typed that in at 1:35 p.m. in the afternoon. 1:35 in the afternoon. That was less than 50% of the time that the game had already happened. We didn't get to halftime yet. And what comes back on my cell phone is that the University of Michigan had an outstanding game, 43-7, and dominated the whole game. They gave us the score, and they gave us the whole thing, not even halfway through. You want to call it hallucination? No, this is fabrication. Fabrication. Now, by the way, the end of the game was extremely close. Yes, University of Michigan won, but by a very, very close margin. Now, why am I telling you this? This is lunacy. Now, please, for everyone listening to this broadcast, think about the advice that you're getting if you don't know what the right answer is. This is the danger. Yes, I'm not the sky is falling panicking. I'm just trying to explain to people how weak this structure is. Now, in order to address this, we also have something that we're talking about to our clients that we call EAI, Enterprise Augmented Information. The industry has picked up on this and is calling it small language models. That's not what we're talking about. This is where we're taking the massive power of the chip, the processing chip, bringing it in-house on enterprise's own data. That's where the magic is going to occur. So what we're talking to people about is building an architecture, specifically a data architecture, that is tuned to their organization, where they know where their information is coming from, and using these processing engines, which are unprecedented in speed. So if you remember back in history, and I'll remember back in when I started, we were called data processing. That was the name of our organization. You know what we're doing today? Processing data. And
completely changed. Like, it flipped.
It flipped. Now, where has the industry concentrated on? The processing side. That's where these, NVIDIA chips and all these other things. It's marvelous. I'm not taking anything away from them. But please remember, there's two words. There's two words. The data side is still weak and getting weaker, because there are people out there on purpose, as we all know, that are putting in information on these large language models to purposely skew things in a certain direction. This is done on purpose. This is not by accidental. The computer doesn't hallucinate. The computer essentially pattern matches on, I think it's 4,096 different parameters. It's pattern matching. So the information that's being done is being manipulated. By the way, misuse of terms, I'm an engineer. It's not prompt engineering that people are doing, it's prompt manipulation. So all of this is discipline. And every once in a while, we're very fortunate. We have somebody that says, maybe Sam and his company are sort of making a little sense here. Maybe just a little bit. And obviously, I'm just joking with you. I'm not trying to panic your audience at all. I'm just trying to say, you know what? Let's get past the veneer, the hype there. There's great stuff going on. There's great stuff going on, and we can harness it.
No, I don't take this as fear mongering. I think it's simply the reality of, and back to the initial question, right, of marketing, branding, messaging. It's about building awareness. You're in the safety business and security business, but really what you're into is the education business. You need to educate your audience, the tech people within the companies that you're targeting, but also people you will need the buy-in of, which means you need to have that awareness, that educational content, hence the podcast, and all that marketing architecture, if I dare say, in order to get the message across, because that's what you need to do. So how do you go from this, Sam, to an actual deal close? Like, how do you go from having the right messaging, having the right targeting, because you've been doing this for literally multiple decades. So you know a thing or two, I suspect, on how to get people to say, yes, I want to work with you. Tell us about the sales motion. How do you go from messaging, awareness, branding to conversation with the tech people, with the people who are going to make the financial decision as well, I guess. And, SOW, letter of engagement, we work together. How does that look like for you?
If I had the magic formula, I would probably be in Tahiti on an island. I do not have the magic formula. Okay, but I can say to you, it's a long sell cycle. It's usually 6+ months minimum.
Wow.
Because what you have there, now that's not for a class, but you're talking about getting a full client engagement. It is a massive investment in time and resources to figure out what their message is. So as I mentioned, the first person that tends to we see is somebody in the technology organization, and this is not to be nasty at all, that probably does not have the authority for a full engagement. In other words, doesn't have the financial resources or the responsibility. As I call it, they're a scout. So we get this person hopefully engaged in our class. Then at the end of our class, we give them a hint. And the hint is, how do you get your organization to see the need for this? We can help. We can help. But it's you doing the quote, and I don't like this term, selling or marketing. But that's what they need to do. They need to take our message and package it, and we'll help them into a way to get the organization convinced. Now, what we call that is a demonstration project. Now, what is that? That is taking our methodology and bringing essentially the first taste of the chocolate cake into their organization. Now, let's not talk about chocolate cake. Maybe they like potato chips. Whatever their domain is, I'm just joking about the food.
Whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works. So it's taking our generic message that they learn in the class and tuning it to an opportunity, a problem, or an initiative. We call that a demonstration project. It's bringing the general concept of EA and BA focused on that particular universe. That is the best way. And through our career, through our history, as I call it, we get that one convert internally to do what we ask them. And then after that, we generally can go in and help not only that individual, but the organization to move forward. So we call it a demonstration project. You can't sell an enterprise architecture. You can't sell business architecture. You can't sell frameworks and methodologies. This is where the industry is going wrong. People don't care about the kitchen and the ingredients and the recipe. They want the chocolate cake. You've got to show them how we can bring that to reality. This is where the industry is going wrong, even today, and why sometimes you see organizations moving away from EA and BA to, once again, the magic of AI, because they're frustrated, because what they're getting is, again, maps and flows and diagrams and value streams and I can go on and on and on and on. As I said, what people need to do, what EAs and BAs need to do is think human. Think human. When you walk into a restaurant, you ask for a hamburger. You don't, and what you don't get is, well, let me explain how we made the hamburger and ground it up, and let me show you the pots and pans that we're using, and the stove and the rest. No. Think human. Think human. Yeah. So that's what we try to do. We get the person that comes to our class to recognize that they are part of the sales process. If they believe what we've told them, then the message is now tuned to that organization. And that's the sell cycle. And yes, it is long. It is not an hour and a half. It is not a week or a month. It's usually, as I said, 3-6 months, and sometimes even longer.
So I mean, without any surprise, especially in B2B coaching and consulting, sales cycles are long. Like we cannot walk around this. It takes, it doesn't only takes trust, right? Because you need to be trusted, you need to be perceived as the subject matter expert in your industry. It takes time. It takes time to build rapport, educate, give value even before you sign any engagements, make your case as well, involve all the stakeholders, make sure that you have everybody's buy-in, and then when you rock and roll, you rock and roll. And it's also the payoff of high 5 figures, 6 figures, seven figures, sometimes engagements.
Right.
This is also what's at the end of the tunnel. So I like this a lot, and that does make sense. How do you? So I guess in your industry, it's going to be an interesting one. I have my assumptions, but I want to ask you first, Sam. Once you get in, how do you retain customers? The reason I'm asking this is one of the things I learned whilst I was a consultant at PwC was that there were two types of consultants, really: the hunters and the farmers. And the partner who taught me everything was like, I'm a hunter. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after new business. And he was like, but Guillaume, the ones making the most money are the farmers. The one able to take that initial engagement, over-deliver, and transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year project feeding other teams from PwC. Like those are the breadwinners. For you, Sam, how do you, so I think the hunting part is clear. How do you farm?
We don't.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
We believe in knowledge transfer. So, for example, I won't speak to the large consulting firms that use us as front ends, but we are not, our purpose is hunting. Now, we've had, by the way, we've had clients for 23 years, but they use us as insurance. So the difference between, for example, PwC or Booz Allen or A.T. Kearney or Boston Consulting Group, we actually front end them. We teach their consultants how to do this, and they do the farming. This is our formula. Now, a lot of clients like that because they know that we are not going to be there forever. Our job is knowledge transfer. That is on purpose. That is the formula that we've had since day one. Now, is that the multi-year millions and millions of dollar engagements? No, it's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. But that's our niche. We have no sponsorship. We have no beholding to any tool company. And we have no beholding to any consulting company. So we are looked at as you said, an educator, knowledge transfer, and subject matter expert. I guess I'll use that phrase. So we love working with PwC or whoever it is. And that's a lot of times what happens.
That's actually a very interesting strategy. And I love how candid and honest it is. And I think in a field like cybersecurity, this is probably why, I mean, you've been able to do this for, I mean, I was on your LinkedIn profile and it's like for respectively 53 and 47 years. Like,
I know I don't look that old, but I am.
No, that's what I was surprised. Is like, is this guy lived twice? What happened? Sam, with everything you've built, and that's going to be another very interesting one because you've gone through, I mean, years of experience, literally. Where would you say, or what's your biggest challenge in 2025 and 2026? Or to phrase it differently, what's the thing that when you're going to be able to unlock, you're going to take the whole thing to the next level, if that's even the point, right? What is the thing that you're looking forward to work on and to develop so that you take the business even to the next level?
Okay. That's a great question as we speak today. Excellent question, because something's happening in the industry. So what is that? And we just put out a paper on this last week. SAP, everybody knows SAP, has completely changed the game on how you become an SAP certified person.
Interesting.
What they've done is said, forget this multiple choice exam nonsense. You come in, most EA and BA courses don't teach EA and BA. They teach how to pass an exam. Now, forget us for a moment. SAP said, this is nonsense, because what's happening in their world is they sell the product. These people are certified SAP consultants, and they actually are not being able to do the work, which reflects on SAP. So SAP says, forget it. We're not doing this anymore. And they built essentially courses that you need to demonstrate your skills. Demonstrate your skills, and then you become an SAP consultant. And thank goodness for them, you have to periodically demonstrate competency, not one and done. Not one and done. We are so thrilled that they've done this. And by the way, why are we thrilled? We've been doing this from day one. We call what we teach workshops, not seminars. Our objective in our course, coming back to the hunter and farmer, our objective is give you the skills, tools, techniques, processes, methods, work breakdown structures, to give you the ability to do this on your own if you want to. Now, we know that we've had all the experience, okay, but we're not holding anything back. So our approach to certification of EA and BA is not exam-based, which everyone, let me repeat, everyone else in the field is doing this. You pass an exam, one time you pass 16 out of 20 questions, and you get a little logo next to your name, and you never have to come back again. We're going to suggest strongly that over the next 24 months, maybe even shorter, our community, the EA and BA community, are going to take the signal from SAP and say, this is nonsense. This is it's hurting the field. It's hurting the EA and BA field. It's damaging what we do because people don't have the skills. So the whole field is being tainted. So we are thrilled that this is happening. And this message that we call EA 5.0 and BA 5.0 is what? If you want to be an EA or a BA, you've got to demonstrate skills, not the ability to pass 16 out of 20 questions on an exam. So the industry, we believe, is going to really become a profession, because professionalization is going to occur. And we hope that others will follow us, because this has been our formula from day one. So that's our hope over the next 12 to 24 months in the EA and BA field, that the professionalization will begin.
That is a hell of a spoiler. I like it. There is this study, I don't remember the exact numbers, so don't quote me on this, but there is like this comparison of how people retain information, remember information, and are able to reproduce a behavior, depending on how they learned it. And it was like when you're watching someone do something, you retain at a certain percentage, it's something like in the neighborhood of like 20, 25%. When you listen and write the information, you retain like 50 or 55%. I'm messing up the numbers, right. But the idea is when you're doing it, you retain the information, you're able to do it actually properly at 80 or 85%. Basically, having a webinar is good, but if you don't get people to actually do the thing, they will never be able to reproduce and learn the proper way. I'm not saying that this is not good. I'm just saying that it's one piece of the puzzle and that you need to have the whole thing, which is why I like the idea of the workshop a lot. And ideally, you'd have like a few other training/homeworks that are thorough in how they are being judged, like, hey, you passed, which is how you approach it. And I like it a lot. And that does make a lot of sense. And it's, again, very much aligned with your business model, which is not focused on farming, but actually providing the materials and the trainings and everything around your industry so that people can do it themselves.
Yes.
And that must create a lot of happy and satisfied clients. Sam, this was an absolute masterclass. I would have not expected anything less from someone in business for more than 5 decades, looking like 30 years old though. So that's double secrets here. Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. If people want to find out more about you, see what you do, potentially look into one of those workshops, where should they go?
2 simple websites, www, of course, EACOE.org, Enterprise Architecture Center of Excellence.org, EACOE.org, and the complimentary one on the business architecture, www.BACOE.org. And on those sites, not only do we have our classes and things like that, but literally hundreds of articles and podcasts. Thank you for listening to those also. And of course, we'd be happy to speak with anyone about this. It's our pleasure to bring method to the madness that we think is out there now.
Thank you so much for this. We'll put all the links in the description. What I can say for sure is that you've gained at least 1 connection on LinkedIn out of this. Me, I just added you. Sam, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
My pleasure. Hopefully the message will take hold. Thank you again for your time and the opportunity.
Thank you, Sam. And actually, I'm just going to add that we had someone on the live even saying like, this is a fantastic conversation, Brenda Maddox. I'll have to listen to the rest later, so we'll send her the link, but it already had some positive feedback, it seems. Thank you so much for coming, Sam. Cheers.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.